Let's talk Tanya for the 25th of Tishrei. Today we start chapter 25, a new letter, a rather lengthy letter. And what's unique about this letter is that all the other letters in Igar Sakodesh, the Alter Rebbe is addressing them to his Chasidim, to his followers, either to communities, to all the Chasidim together, sometimes maybe even to individuals. This letter is not addressed to the followers of the Alter Rebbe. In fact, it isn't even addressed to people who are neutral towards the Alter Rebbe. It was addressed directly to the Misnagdim, those who were the opponents and very strongly opposed the teachings of Chasidus. What is the background of this letter? So in 1794, there was a new book that was published and was called Savas Harivash, which literally translates as the last will and testament of the Baal Shem Tov. The Rivash is an acronym for Rebbe Yisrael Baal Shem, although it wasn't really his last will and testament, but that's what it was called. It was a compilation of someone compiled various teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and put them together and published them. The Baal Shem Tov himself didn't write his works, but these were transcribed by others. This book became very controversial with the Misnagdim, the opponents of Chassidus, coming out very strongly and saying that it contained thoughts and ideas that were heretical. And in fact, 2 years later in 1796, in the city of Vilna, which was the stronghold and bastion of those who opposed Chassidus, this book was publicly burned before Pesach together with the Chametz. And there was one passage specifically in this book that the Misnagdim found particularly offensive. And in this letter, the Alter Rebbe is coming to defend that passage and will explain how everything that's written there is 100% corroborated by that which we find in the writings of the Arizal. What exactly is this passage which the Alter Rebbe is coming to defend? We'll get to that later on in the chapter, but first the Alter Rebbe is going to give us some background information which is necessary in order to defend that passage. And the Alter Rebbe quotes a saying of our sages, which is Kol HaKoyis is Ki'ilu Oived Avodah Zarah, that someone who becomes angry, it's as if that person is guilty of idolatry. In simple words, anger is tantamount to idolatry. Now, this is a surprising statement, especially if we understand that everything in Torah is precise and exact. You want to say that it's bad to get angry, okay, but why idolatry? What is the connection between anger and idolatry? Maybe say it's like murder. Maybe say it's like adultery. Obviously, when Torah says that two things are similar to each other, or one thing is as bad as the other, so obviously there's some sort of inherent connection between the two. They're related. They're actually the same thing. In which way is anger the same thing as idolatry? So the Rebbe explains that the essence of anger, why does someone get angry, is when someone feels that something unjustified has happened to him or her. Now, if Hashem controls everything and manages and runs everything, then how can we say that something unjustifiable has happened to me? After all, Hashem runs the world and everything is from Hashem. So if idolatry is about saying there is something other than Hashem which is in control, anytime that a person gets angry, essentially it's the same message, it's the same idea. Why am I getting angry? Because obviously Hashem is not in control. There's another person or another circumstance was in control in this specific area, which, by the way, that's your idol. Whoever did something to anger you becomes your idol because you're saying that person or that thing has the control and not God. So essentially, it's the same thing, anger and idolatry. Both of them is saying Hashem is not fully in control. Now you're going to say, but 1 second, another person has free choice. I could be angry at that person for hurting me or for offending me. That's not from Hashem. That was because of that person's free choice. Here the Alter Rebbe introduces a very powerful, a very important and very big idea, which I know many struggle with. But the Alter Rebbe has no problem saying this, and that is, you have to understand that if you get hurt, it doesn't make a difference who hurt you. And that person had free choice, and therefore that person is held liable for their behavior, their egregious behavior, and that person will be punished for that behavior. However, only Hashem controls the world and only Hashem controls the outcomes, which means that if you were hurt, it was predetermined and predestined that you should be hurt. If on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur of that year, it hadn't been determined that you would be hurt, no one would be able to hurt you. Now, that person has free choice. If that person hadn't hurt you, someone else could have hurt you. But at the end of the day, anytime that I get hurt, I have to know this is from Hashem. If it's from Hashem, I can't get angry. And if I get angry, that's idolatry because I'm saying that Hashem is not in complete control over here. So it's predetermined. Everything that happens to me is predetermined, predestined by Hashem. And it's not only that. Alter Rebbe says it's more than predetermined. As we learned in Shar Yichud V'Amunah, at every single moment, Hashem is recreating the world and recreating all the circumstances in the world. So that very event, which was hurtful to me, was created by Hashem at that moment. So how can I get angry? If I believe that Hashem is good and Hashem loves me, how can I get angry? Now, this concept of Hashem recreating everything at every circumstance at every single morning, at every single moment, is something that we will explore further in tomorrow's Tanya.